Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Trending. Thank you so much for tuning in. Wherever you're watching this or wherever you're listening to this, you can watch over at iconic.com and you can subscribe there for just £1.99. We've got loads and loads of weekly shows, new content coming out every single day. We've got documentaries, thousands and thousands of hours of them, and feature films as well. We've also got a podcast called What If. I've been given a What If mug today, even though I'm doing Trending. But I can't complain. Thank you, Charlotte, for making me a coffee. It was very kind of you. Right, let's start off then. Let's go for Keir Starmer. I could get on board with going for Keir Starmer, to be fair. The headline reads, Starmer's growing list of enemies can smell his weakness. This is an opinion piece in The Telegraph. After another reshuffle, it's like a deck of cards, isn't it? Another reshuffle can't distract from the brutal truth that the Prime Minister is the worst possible leader at the worst possible time. Well, that depends, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? It depends on what his orders are. Because if his orders are to basically do what's best for the British people and represent them to the best of his ability, then yeah, he probably is the worst possible leader at the worst possible time. But I don't think there's a single person out there watching this, or anyone out there who isn't watching this, to be fair, that maybe isn't in a padded cell, that thinks for 1 second that Keir Starmer's doing his best for the British people. No one believes that. If he's here to destroy the country, however, he's doing a grand job, isn't he? Doing an absolutely fantastic job. For now, of course, because, you know, useful idiots stop being useful and then they become simply idiots. And at that point, they're removed. Now, several members, this is important to make this point just before I carry on with the news story. Several members of the Labour Party front bench are members of the Fabian Society. Okay, now this is supposedly a socialist left-wing think tank. They love their think tanks. And this one goes way back. What I am enjoying at the moment is the fact that that's come into the public discourse. My dad's been talking about the Fabian Society for decades. It's not something that's really seeped into the public arena that much. You know, people maybe heard of it. Oh, the Fabian Society, the Fabians. Yeah, I've heard of them. It's some Victorian thing or something, isn't it? But several members of the front bench are members of the Fabian Society. Now, they've come to prominence recently in the public discourse because it's been revealed that the judge that ruled against the people of Epping in terms of closing down the migrant hotel in Epping is a member of the Fabian Society. That's made people go, what's that? Oh, let me look into it. What I will say, right, in terms of the Fabian Society, because I've got to give credit where it's due, right? Which isn't very often, but when there is credit, right, I'll credit people. I will credit the Fabian Society because here's their logo, right? It's not like they were trying to hide it. I kind of have respect for that. It's literally a wolf in sheep's clothing. They're telling you exactly what they are. And that's why members of the government, like your Sadiq Khan, who's destroyed London, like your Ed Miliband, who's destroying our energy infrastructure, are acting as wolves in sheep's clothing. That's exactly what they're doing, especially someone like Ed Miliband, who's selling it as we're doing it for the benefit of the planet. We're going to save you. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Look at me. I'm a harmless sheep. No, you're not, mate. Right, continue the story. It's always the Prime Minister's fault for things going wrong and never their staff. Well, not really. I mean, they basically sign off on things that have been provided for them by the civil servants, the permanent government. I bet half the things that Starmer signs off on and puts his wet ink on, he's not even read. He's just doing as he's told, like they all do. Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, and now Keir Starmer all ran chaotic, failing governments entirely because of their own personal weaknesses and character flaws. I'm not a fan of any of them, but I'm not sure it's necessarily a weakness and a character flaw. I think they're just following orders. They're just doing as they're told. The character flaw, I guess, is that they're, you know, sociopaths, basically. Which I would consider a flaw, really. Keir Starmer's reshuffle of number 10 staff will achieve nothing because he's not up to the job. Well, again, I'll come back to the point. It depends what you think his job is. If you're going on the naivety's anonymous view that he's doing his best and he's here to serve the people of Britain, then yeah, okay, it's not going to do anything for that. But if you can at least accept that, I think there's a bit more to know, then you'll see what he's doing is actually pretty good, really. He's doing it. I think if he's trying to destroy the country, he's doing an amazing job. It was Starmer's decision to bin the Conservatives' Rwanda scheme. Like I say, it's never... I'll stop interrupting in a minute. It's not down to the selected official. They are just front men and women. They just stand there in front of the cameras. It's the ones stood behind them. The ones that you probably... Oh, what's his name? They're the ones that are making the decisions. It was his decision to extend the early release of criminals from prison. That was madness. How many of them ended up back in prison again with about 25 minutes? It was his decision to increase public sector pay while raising taxes on businesses and families. The list is long. Each of these decisions was down to him, not to his staff. It's quite a naive article. If you honestly think that one man or one woman at the top, or supposedly at the top, is making all the decisions, come on, mate. While he has no doubt inherited a failing country from incompetent Tories, he's made it worse. Yes, he has made it worse, but again, coming back to the naivety of the writer of this article, incompetent Tories. It's not incompetence, mate. We surely can't still be believing it's incompetence. That everything around us is happening because of idiots. Idiots that just happen to make the decisions that every other country is doing as well. Because it's not just Britain that's going this way. The entirety of the West is going this way. And the entirety of the West is pushing digital ID as an answer to the mess that they're creating. So this isn't just incompetence. It's honestly, I'm shocked that people still believe it. And I actually don't think they do, if I'm honest. I think it's just the easier way of saying it. It probably helps you sleep at night if you think that they're just idiots. And if they're just idiots, that's fine, because we might get some decent ones along any minute and we can elect them and they'll make it better. That will help you sleep rather than lying there going, oh no, this is a plan, man. These guys are all in this together. Because as soon as the cameras switch off, all those enemies across political divides, you know they're all quaffing champagne and laughing at us. So he ends this particular bit that I've read with it. He's made it worse. He has, because he's here to make it worse. That's the point. Because everything he and his party have promised that they'll do, they've basically done the opposite of. Which is so obviously meant to wind people up. And it's doing that. It's doing that across the board. It's not just winding up those that would be considered of the right, those of the left. So your genuine socialists, your genuine lifetime Labour voters, they're pretty cheesed off as well. So you've got an entire country of very annoyed people. And they've done everything they can to achieve that. They've done everything they can to wind up the population. Spoke about it last week. Just the idea of bringing in or allowing and incentivizing 50,000 migrants to come over on small boats and then say in a few weeks, we might send back 100. That's worse than not sending back any. Because just it's such an absurdity that they must know that. So that actually doesn't appeal to anyone, sending back 100. Because all your refugee rights lot, activists, they're not happy because you shouldn't be sending back any. They should all be looked after. And then the people that want a genuine solution to the immigration crisis are going 100 out of 50,000. I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but come on, mate. So that's obviously being done on purpose. Now, this is I've spoken about this quite a lot, but I'm going to say it again because I think it's worth saying again. How the political system works in every country. It's not just Britain, but this story is focusing on Keir Starmer in Britain, so we'll use that as an example. I see it basically like a set of scales, right? Now, when you've got two scales that are basically at the same level, there's a balance to that, and one is counteracting the other, which is, I'm not a fan of politics, but that's how politics should be, where one is balancing the other, one is holding the other to account. So you can end up in a place where everyone's getting a little bit of what they want and what they require. Maybe not everything, but everyone's getting a little bit of what they want. That is how a political society would function in my mind, right? Where one can't go too far because the other will balance it out. And so you don't have the extremes of the right and of the left. But that's not how they work it. They work it in such a way that the scale comes down like that. So this is Labour right now, right? Just bringing it down, bringing it down, bringing it down. And what's happening by doing that, and you're winding everyone up and people are fighting back against it and marching on the streets and protesting and saying, I'm not having it, get him out, get Starmer out. The enemies are circling. What that's doing is it's elevating the other side. So then people go, oh, well, that side's got the answer. So then what happens is you vote in that side. And then when that side gets into power, that happens. So let's go back in the short term, the Tories. Now, the Labour Party, after Blair, were basically finished. They were basically finished. They were in the bin. And then you had a situation where Boris Johnson, just a few years ago before COVID, won with an enormous landslide. And they wiped out the red wall, if you remember that. They totally wiped out Labour. Labour had done for 50 years. That's what everyone's saying. They're finished. Some people were shocked by that. I remember doing a podcast on The Morning with a Labour activist, and me and my brother did it. And we were the least shocked people in the world. Like, we knew Labour were going to take a battering because the media had turned on them. And that's a real telltale sign. So what happened with that was suddenly Labour was brought down, destroyed, and the Tories were elevated. So they brought the Tories in, and the Tories got a load of stuff over the line, particularly during COVID, right? They got a load of stuff over the line. But it wasn't good stuff, because it never is. And so the people were done with it, and they were fighting back, and the Tories were done, and the Tories were done. And who was being elevated as a result? Labour. What, the same useless Labour that just lost the Red Wall and was basically in the wilderness for 50 years. That Labour, oh, okay. So they came up like that. And now they're in. And then what's happening? And so all that happens with that is you just keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So you're angry at one side, and then that side gets voted out. And the people that are angry, instead of going, you're all a uni party, go, it's going to be different this time. And the next party starts with basically a blank sheet of paper, and you allow them to do things because they can use excuses, which is exactly what Labour did when they came in. Oh, sorry, we can't do that. £50 billion black hole. We didn't know about it. Oh, I know we said we put taxes down. Oh, sorry, got to put them up. And people allow it for a bit, and then they start to fight back against it and fight back against it, which is what's happening now. So then what happens at the next election? Labour get battered. Another party comes in, probably Reform. Let's have it right. And everyone goes, these are new. This is different. They're a different kind of suit. They shop at a different shop. Got a different tailor. It's going to be different. And then what happens? Well, they start, like I said, with a blank sheet of paper. They get away with it for a bit. And then they start to do things and people go, hang on, that's not what we voted for. You reckon? Look at Trump, same thing. That's not what we voted for. Hang on, we didn't vote for... Oh. Have you ever heard of the Labour Party? They're quite good, aren't they? Suddenly everyone's got this amnesia of, yeah, I remember them. They were flaming awful, weren't they? And that's how it works. And it just goes back and forth and back and forth. So if you look at political parties within the United Kingdom, it's Tory Labour, few Lib Dems early doors, Tory Labour, Tory Labour, Tory Labour, Tory Labour. What's the point? So one side gets in, oh, they're awful. Yeah, they are awful. Awful. Country's a mess. Right, let's vote them out. Right, vote them out. Let's put them in. Oh, they're awful, aren't they? Yeah, they are awful. Country's a mess. Let's vote them out. Should we put them back in? It's mad. But it happens. And one side pushes until they get resistance, get them out. But the other side starts at that point. They never roll back stuff. They never give you more freedoms and they never give you more money in your pocket. So one side has got you so far in terms of the agenda down the road of hell, dystopia. So then when you vote them out, because you don't like what they're doing, this side comes in. But they start at the same point. Like I said, they never roll it back. So they go forward a bit until you go, nah, I've had enough. Vote them out. this side comes in. Again, they never repeal anything. They never bring it back. They never go, oh, mate, you know, they took your freedoms away and your freedom of speech away. You know, they took all the money out of your skyrocket so you can't afford to function properly. Here is it all back. No chance. So they start at that point as well. And then what you look at is you go, I voted in 4 general elections. And what's happened? Both sides have brought me from there to here. And here's not good. Same in America. The Democrats weren't trying at the end, because no matter what people seem to think about Trump being an outsider, he's not. They basically didn't try and allowed him to come in. And you look at the same here. Sunak, he didn't want to be prime minister. He didn't even try, because they knew that Starmer and Labour were the ones that were going to come in. And now they're not even trying, because they know that the next party is going to go back to the right here in the UK. I'd be shocked if it didn't, because it's all being manipulated that way. Now, the reason for that, I mentioned it a bunch of times, but again, I'll mention it. What they do is they use people's tribal nature to get certain things through the door. The biggest thing at the moment is digital ID. It's everywhere. I'm getting bored of talking about it, but it's the hill to die on, so I'm going to keep talking about it, because it's the beginning of everything. They can't control the population in terms of numbers. They can't physically control us. They can't. That was proved beautifully during COVID. As soon as people grew a spine and stood up and said no, it was done, because they don't have the numbers to do that. But if they can do it digitally, electronically, then that's a totally different game. If they can exclude you from society, if everyone has to have an ID card, which we have to accept to have, you have to invite the vampire into the door. So you need to get people to accept that. Once that's in place, the parameters of what you need the digital ID for expands. Of course it does. So they're already talking about having, your medical details on there. Okay, well then that's your vaccine record. Are your kids up to date? If they're not allowed to go to school. But it's illegal to not send your kids to school, because we're going to get rid of homeschooling. All these things will come in once you allow it in. It's that whole thing of, once the wolf is in the door, it doesn't really matter. It's game over. People say it all the time. They did a lot during COVID, especially in the early days. They gave a bit. Oh, I'll let the wolf in the door, but he's only staying in the hallway. He's not coming in the lounge. Mate, you've let him in the house. He's going in the lounge. And once he's in the lounge, they go, yeah, but he's not going upstairs. That's my family's upstairs. He's in the lounge, mate, because you've allowed it by not standing up and fighting back against it. And in the end, it's tearing the house to shreds. So what they need to do is to get this digital ID in. They have clearly acknowledged that those that are going to be the most opposed to it are those that would identify as being on the right. In America, those that would probably most oppose AI, the massive rollout of that, would be on the right. So to get those two sides to agree to it, you need to do 2 things. You need to have their side, because of the tribalism, you need to have their side in government, because they're more likely to allow it if it's their team, because there's so much winning going on. And also, to provide the excuse, you need to use something that they care about. So in America, they would be opposed to AI and that biometric ID stuff. So you say it's for the southern border, because the people that would be most opposed to biometric ID are most concerned about the southern border crisis. And here in the United Kingdom, who would be the ones that would stand up against digital ID? The right. Who are those that are most concerned about mass unfiltered immigration? The right. So you use the immigration as the excuse for the digital ID just to get them to agree to it. I've said that so many times. I'm sorry if I'm boring you. I'm boring myself. But I think it's important to keep making that point, because we are going to see more and more and more and more of it. And so hopefully when people on the right, because at the moment it's mainly people on the left, it's mainly Labour MPs that are coming out pushing for digital ID. It's mainly what you consider the left-wing, Robert Peston type media that are pushing for digital IDs. Not that left and right mean anything anymore, but you get my point. Once the right start cheering it on. We've had the odd little bit here and there where you've had obviously the MP for Runcorn, who's a Reform MP, saying she doesn't see a problem with digital ID. So there's a little bit of it seeping in. But once they start talking about it, I'm hoping that you will go, hang on, I've heard that before, that's what was going to happen. And that might make you realise that actually, hang on, this whole tribal stuff is nonsense. It's just a way of getting you to succumb once again to the political pantomime, because so many of us basically discarded it. I mean, I comment on politics because it plays a role in society, unfortunately, but I'm not a fan of it and I don't support it. I don't have a political allegiance. I don't have a political party. I'm not going to go and vote and choose between AIDS and cancer every 4 years. I'm not going to legitimize them by doing that. So I don't buy into politics. It's not for me. I don't support it. And a lot of people started to move away from that during that COVID era when they realized, well, it doesn't actually matter who I vote for. I can't vote my way out of this because all these parties are aligned. They are literally all in lockstep. The only difference that would come from different parties is that they would lock down harder or they would introduce more draconian mandates. So you had no one to vote for. So people came together, irrespective of political allegiance, irrespective of religious belief. They came together and they stood up and they formed alliances. And that terrifies the establishment. It terrifies them. And ever since that period of coming together and mass protest, I was marching through London alongside people of all ethnicities, all backgrounds, all faiths. You know, the media at first tried to paint it as far-right conspiracy theorists until they started putting up pictures of protests in London that you could see hijabs in. It's like, I'm not sure that's a far-right protest, mate. That terrified the establishment. And so ever since, they have tried to get everyone once again divided. I mean, October 7th has been exploited massively for that division, and to get people back into the political pantomime. Now, that's why these new parties have emerged, to try and give the illusion of an outsider, someone who's anti-globalist, someone who's not part of the deep state. And they did the same with Trump, because in 2016, around that period, Alex Jones, InfoWars, all these alternative media outlets were growing because people were done with the political nonsense. They weren't left and right anymore. You'd had Obama, horror show, but you'd had George W. Bush, horror show. So people were going, it doesn't matter who I vote for, it's a uni-party in the United States. And of course it is, still. So they came in with an outsider to try and basically gaslight and sort of, push people back into the political pantomime, because they'd started to basically step outside of it. And that's what's happened here in the United Kingdom. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing massively. And we're going to see a lot more of it, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to ramp up massively more in the coming weeks and months, for sure. Absolutely. And it's not beyond the realms that they try and basically get rid of Starmer as well in terms of pulling him down. That story with the Ukrainian male escorts and all that kind of stuff, there's so much more to know. And the red flag of that story is the fact that the media didn't touch it. And I've said it so many times. You've got a situation, where the Prime Minister of a country has a load of his private stuff torched by 4 guys that turn out to all be Ukrainian and all either be male models or escorts or whatever, and the media doesn't ask a single question. The main question being, do you know them, and how did they know that was your stuff? No one asked that question. If Paul Gascoigne had his stuff torched by 4 Ukrainian male escorts, male models or whatever, mate, that'd be on the front page. Yeah, when it's the Prime Minister, there's nothing. So I'm thinking to myself, that's in the back pocket for later. So that's it for the free section. If you head over to iconic.com, I say that, it's actually free on iconic.com, so I've misspoken there. You can watch the rest of this morning's trending, the other 2 stories about Russia and China and about Belgium recognising Palestine over on iconic.com. Now I'll put the link obviously in the description below, so you can just click through there and go and watch the rest on Iconic. And if you don't join me over there, that's fine. It's your choice. I shall see you later on in the week.